Now that I'm finally doing the spoiler episode of Jessica Jones, I can finally talk about the real, true, greatest villain of the show. Jessica's upstairs neighbor. I mean, seriously, Kilgrave is bad and all that stuff, but her upstairs neighbor? Oh my god, you guys, what a bee-bonnet. I apologize for my language, that was inappropriate, but seriously, you guys. No, seriously, Kilgrave. That guy is just garbage. He is a garbage man. Seriously, terrible. Yes, hi everyone. I think that everyone has now had enough time to get through most of Jessica Jones, so it is safe to finally do the spoiler talk. I'm Aaron, Professor Thorgi, your guide to all things geeky, and if you missed my initial spoiler-free review of Jessica Jones, go ahead and click on that video right there. I'll give you time to click on. And while you're taking the time to click on it, I'll just go ahead and tell everybody that if you happen to be in the New York, New Jersey area this upcoming weekend, December 4th through the 6th, I will actually be at the Meadowlands Convention Center for the Walker Stalker Con. Michelle Bard, aka Toonskribblez, who does all the art for this channel, actually will be having a table there, and I will be there helping her sell her wares. So if you haven't been in the area, feel free to stop by. Have you guys had time to click on that video now? Cool, let's get into the spoiler talk. Yes, okay, so this is going to be the spoiler discussion, and in the spoiler discussions, it's not really thought out, it's not really prepared. I didn't go through and write down everything that I want to say, because this isn't really me going through and going, okay, let's talk about all the high points. This is me just sort of going, hey man, I just have some thoughts about this show though. I just want to get out there and, you know, I just want to talk about it without the fear of spoiling anything. So yeah, I say that like I plan out all of my episodes and that this isn't just me rambling up there and hoping it all makes sense. That was the alternate title for this channel, by the way. So okay, let's get into it. If you watched my review that I did of Jessica Jones, I have to go ahead and start off by clarifying something and apologizing for something. In that review, I talked about how the only real problem I had with the show, I absolutely loved it, but the only real problem that I had with the show was I didn't think that they treated her powers very well. Like, I think a lot of the editing around her powers was kind of choppy. It didn't match the flow of the rest of the series. And also, her powers tended to fluctuate to be whatever they needed them to be for that scene. And one of the examples that I brought up was I thought the editing was pretty bad on one scene in which she grabbed Simpson and it was supposed to be that she caught him while he was falling through the air and that she landed in garbage so that he would have carried out Kilgrave's orders to him. And many of you came into the comments and said, yeah, I don't think that the editing was bad on that. I think that it actually was supposed to look like she wasn't actually falling, like she actually was just falling back into garbage, and that she then lied to Simpson and told him that that's what he did, so that that way he would think they carried it out. And after you guys told me that, I went back and I watched the scene and I was like, oh, that actually makes sense. So yeah, I take that complaint back about that one scene. You guys were actually right about that. That actually probably is what they intended to do. So, yeah, okay, my bad. But I still do kind of stand by that I don't think that the use of her powers were very good. I mean, there is that scene in which we see her stop the car that's about to hit the little girl. And I mean, she stops this thing and it doesn't even really seem to faze her. But then that scene where she is like chasing after Kilgrave, she's just getting tackled by regular people, by like skinny, thin, like a child tackles her at one point. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? That should be like a feather being thrown at you. You shouldn't go down from that. So yeah, I still stand by that. I think that the way that they wrote her powers in here were kind of just all over the place, depending on whatever they needed it to be. And I do think that a lot of the action with it was kind of missed. Like, for example, the fight scene between Simpson, Jessica, and Patsy in her apartment. That to me did not match the tone of this series at all. In fact, honestly, the tone of that fight scene was almost like a Power Rangers fight. I don't know why that's what it reminded me of, but just maybe it was with how high energy Patsy was getting. I get that she was taking the adrenaline boosting drugs that Nuke did, which by the way, I'm gonna get into Nuke later, holy cow. But I get that that's why she was acting like that, but it still just seems so weird to see that in here. And I mean, even before she took them, she was like, hey man, it might just work for me. I was like, that doesn't seem like how you should act in this situation at all. But yeah, I don't know why. Maybe it was the music they were playing during that. Maybe it was just this high octane, super energized fighting that was going on. I was like, this doesn't seem like how the rest of the show is supposed to be. But I will go ahead and say that that wasn't the last fight scene we saw in the series. The last one we saw was Luke Cage versus Jessica, and holy cow, I thought that one was excellent. That one I thought actually did really show off the weight that the rest of the series has had in combat. So I was like, okay, yeah, you actually do know how to shoot a fight scene in this same tone. So I don't know if they brought someone in different to do that fight scene, or it was just by that point the directors were like, oh, now I get how to do this. But yeah, I do applaud them for the Luke Cage Jessica Jones fight. That one was really good. However, speaking of the action, probably the weirdest compliment that I have to give this show, and it's probably going to sound horrible, but hear me out, is that we see Patsy training, and she's got her own personal trainer, and she's got her own personal gym, and I thought that was awesome because she's going to be Hellcat, and I was like, yes, give me Hellcat, that's going to be awesome, I can't wait for her to be in the MCU. Will she be in Civil War? Please say yes. So I was happy to see this, like, okay, she's getting trained in some combat, alright, this is cool. In fact, I'm kind of hoping that with the pills that she took from Nuke, there might be some kind of a side effect where it's like, oh, I'm a little bit stronger now, maybe I should go out and put on a costume. That would be probably a weird thing to do in season 2. But one of the things I actually did enjoy is that we see her training, and then the first time that she's in an actual fight, she gets her ass kicked. And the reason why I thought that was good is because one of my biggest, I don't know if you want to call it a nitpick or what, but whenever there is some kind of a show or a movie where someone trains in a dojo and they just train under a master, or they train in a gym and they learn how to fight through that, they can instantly fight in reality. And one of my biggest nitpicks with those kinds of things is like, no man, you can't. I'm not going to reveal too much about my shady past, but there is a massive difference between learning to fight with an instructor and learning to actually fight in a real one-on-one fight. So this is the only time I have ever seen any show or movie actually do that, where it's like, yeah, she trained, she's really good, she's a black belt, she still doesn't know how to fight in reality. I was like, oh my god, that is exactly what it's like in real life. So thank you for that. Someone on this show knew their stuff. Alright, while we're still talking about him, let's get into Nuke, because oh my gosh, that guy, Simpson, I kept looking at him like, you're someone. You're definitely someone. You're mentioning a shade past, you're sticking around for no apparent reason to help catch this, you have a sense of duty, you have military experience. Are you going to be US agent? Like, that was the only guy who I could think of that it might be. I thought that would be a weird turn of events, but I was like, alright, maybe it's him. And then they introduced that so well, where they never once say the character's name, but he's just sitting there on the bed, and he goes, yeah, I feel pretty good. Give me a red. And when he said that, I lost my mind. I spent literally the next 2 minutes, the rest of that entire scene, just going, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, it's him, it's that guy, oh my god. Yeah, I fanboyed out a little bit, so sue me. It's Nuke, alright? And he's not even like that big of a character. It's more of just that, listen, after seeing through 3 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where every single season they only introduce like one new character, I was so freaking excited to see an actual Marvel show where they went, okay, here's Jessica Jones, here's Hellcat, here's Luke Cage, here's the Purple Man, here's Nuke, in which they were actually just throwing stuff at us. And I have always said that when it comes to a comic book adaptation, I don't really care how much fan service you give me, because that is secondary. A good story, good characters, good drama, good development, good writing, all of that is first. The fan service stuff, that's just the sprinkles on the top. But this had all of that, and so throwing in a bunch of sprinkles there was kind of awesome. I appreciate those. Thank you, show. Although I will say, I wish they had given us maybe like one more line from Nuke to kind of introduce who he was. Simply because when he suddenly just starts asking for that doctor, I was like, did I even go to the bathroom in a scene in which that whole thing was introduced? Because, you know, they mentioned his military background, they mentioned that, hey, he's seen some stuff, so I was like, okay, you are definitely somebody. But then it kind of cranked it up to 11, I was like, maybe go to 9 and 10 first before that, because that's still a little bit of a jump. But still, hats off to you guys for introducing that. That was pretty darn cool. But okay, before we move on to the heroes, let's finish up talking about the villains. I have to talk about Kilgrave. I mentioned in my review that I was just stunned by David Tennant's performance. If he doesn't get nominated for an Emmy, I'm calling BS on that. He is easily my favorite villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And also, I mentioned in that review, this is probably my second favorite Joker performance of all time. That scene where he is at the poker table and he's just making the guys give him money, and he tells the other guy, yeah, let's see how hard you can hammer your head into that board. I was like, that is up there with Heath Ledger's performance in Dark Knight when he's with all the mob bosses. That to me is on equal footing with that. He nailed that. He nailed every single moment that he was on screen. It is one of the best performances I have seen from anybody in any of these Marvel films or television shows. But I honestly think that they wrote this character incredibly well. I mentioned in that review that this character really is a metaphor. In fact, it's not even that much of a metaphor. It's more of just taking this type of character and giving them superpowers, but he is a metaphor for the threats that a lot of women have to face from obsessive, stalkerish guys. I mean, there is a moment in which he tells her, I am going to make you love me, in which I was like, oh God, I've heard guys say that. Oh man, they really were able to make anyone watching that show realize what type of fear people in the real world must feel when some stalkerish dude actually says some crap like that. In fact, talking about stalkerish moments, the biggest holy crap moment in the entire series to me was when he was trying to buy the house, and I kept wondering, why on earth do you care about buying this house? Why are you trying to do it legit? Why do you care about having this house at all? That moment in which he goes in there and he peels back the wallpaper sent chills down my spine. That was probably the freakiest moment in this entire series. And everything after that point of him in the house was just some of the best villain work I have ever seen from an actor. I mean, the moment in which he takes the chef and the maid and makes them stare out the window until Jessica comes back and they're begging him, can we blink now? He's like, nope, you can't blink until she gets back. And I'm like, that is, whoever wrote that needs help, needs psychiatric help, because no one should even be able to think of something that messed up. I'm just kidding, writers on Jessica Jones. You keep doing what you do. I want to see what you do in season 2. In fact, one of my favorite things about this entire series was probably that whole sequence in which Jessica was living at the house with Kilgrave, because there was that moment in which Kilgrave was trying to tempt her by showing her how much fun his powers can be. And I'm not saying this in any way, shape, or form to kind of be like, oh, and that's when you realize Kilgrave wasn't such a bad guy. Because he is such a bad guy. He is not just such a bad guy, he's the worst guy. He should get a trophy that says Worst Guy of the Year 2015. And he should be the little dude on top of the trophy, because he is horrible. But I don't know why, but I just love that whole sequence in which, like, they're watching the news and there's the hostage negotiation going on. And she goes, here, come on, follow me. We're going to show you what you can do with your powers. He just walks in, he saves the day, and that entire sequence right there, I know it would be terrible. I'm going to regret what I'm about to say, but watching that sequence made me kind of go, I really just want a buddy cop show of these two together solving crimes. The sociopath who can make anyone do what he says, and the woman who hates him and is trying to kill him whenever his back is turned. Together they team up to fight crime. I don't know why, but that to me just looked like I would watch 26 episodes of this a year. I would totally be down for that. And I'll also say, I kind of love that whole sequence too between him and the neighbor. Well, the neighbor just comes over and is being a piece of crap. And we have all known that neighbor at some point in time. It might not have been our actual neighbor. It might have been somebody that we worked with, someone that we went to school with. In fact, if you have ever worked retail, you have had to ring up that person at some point in time. So I don't know if it was some weird, deep-seated, cathartic reason why I enjoyed that scene so much. But when he just breaks her down and just goes, why would you say all those terrible things? And just gets her to just break down and admit, okay, it's because I'm a sad person and I'm terrible. Let's be honest, whenever we've had to interact with those people, that's the exact conversation we've had in our heads. So, I thought that scene was amazing. I can't tell if being main to that is going to get me a bunch of subscribers or lose me all of them. But one of the things I was so impressed with about Kilgrave throughout this show was that scene when you finally find out his origin and when he confronts his parents, because, listen, I am so fed up with all of these psychopathic monsters, and then they've had that origin of, oh, but mommy and daddy didn't care about me. It's like, dude, shut up. Cool story, but still murder. This was one of those few times in which it was like, oh yeah, mommy and daddy were mean to me, but then you hear their side of the story, but then you hear his side of the story, and they go back and forth and like, both of you actually kind of have a point on this one. Like, yes, their son was dying, so yes, his parents tried to do anything that they could to save him. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I can understand you doing that. But then you see the videos and you're like, oh, dude, that might be a step too far. And then you find out about how he used his powers to make them do terrible things to themselves, and it's like, oh, yeah, you are definitely a monster. But then there's that great line where he turns to them and goes, how was I supposed to know that was wrong? You just left. And then it was kind of a brief moment in which I went, oh yeah, he was never actually taught right from wrong. I'm not saying it excuses him, not at all. He is indeed a monster. But it did make me actually look at him and go, well, that actually is a reason why you would be a monster. That is not some weak excuse for why you act like such a sociopath. You actually were literally never taught right from wrong, and you just saw your parents leave. Yeah, man, of course you don't know what you're doing. Again, not an excuse. You're a grown-ass man. You should have learned this by now. But still, I can look at you and go, oh shoot. Yeah, there is an actual origin story behind the way that you are, and it adds up. It actually makes sense. So, hey, Jessica Jones writing staff, you guys did your work. This is one of the best villain origin stories I've seen in a while. But okay, let's get on to the heroes. I have to start by talking about Luke Cage. I love this actor. I mean, I am totally prepared for his show. I cannot wait to see what happens in it. I am really looking forward to seeing how Night Nurse is going to pop up in there. I know that's not her actual character name, but I'm going to call her Night Nurse. I can't wait to see how she pops up in there, because there is that moment at the end of the series in which Jessica hands her the business card, and the moment that she did that, I was like, oh my god, she's got contacts with Daredevil. She now has Jessica Jones's number. Jessica has Luke Cage's number. I now see the thread happening between these shows starting to form. That was awesome. But okay, getting back to Luke. I really love what they did. The scene in the bar fight where they introduce his powers and he gets stabbed and the thing just breaks and he just rolls his eyes. The moment I saw that, I was like, that's going to be the most gift scene in this entire thing. You're going to see that over every form of social media. And indeed you have. So yeah, that was awesome. I loved it so much. I only have one problem with how they portrayed Luke Cage in this. It's not that they changed his origin story so that he is a widower, and that he's carrying the anger and the guilt over what happened to his wife over this. I actually thought that was kind of a cool addition to his character. The problem I had is that, and this is maybe a geeky thing to be upset about, but my problem with it was that Luke Cage is bulletproof in the comics. In fact, that is a very important part of his character. He was created back in the 70s, in which there was still a lot of fear from law enforcement over the idea of a large black man walking around. And so they were like, no, we're going to make this guy bulletproof so he can actually stand up to these type of people, so he can stand up to law enforcement. In fact, if you go back and you read a lot of those early Luke Cage books, he's getting shot at by the police constantly, and the bullets are dropping off him, and it's like, yeah, they are making a statement in this. And I don't want to get too political on you guys, but if you have paid any attention to the news over the past couple of years, you know that is still a very relevant thing. So yeah, I actually had a huge problem with the fact that Jessica stopped that fight by shooting him, and it actually almost killed him. It's like, that was kind of one of the points of your character, is that you are bulletproof. And now, yeah, the bullet didn't break the skin, but the pressure from it still almost killed you with internal bleeding and causing your brain to swell up. Yeah, I'm hoping, and I know this is like a geeky explanation for it, but I'm hoping that they say it's like, oh, well, in this version he's got some kind of a healing factor, so he actually is going to come back stronger after that. Now he actually will be bulletproof, because, yeah, man, I want to see Luke Cage in his own series. just having bullets bounce off of him like Superman. I want him to be the same guy that he is in the comics, where he is big and tough and can just stand up to anything. So, yeah, I don't know. I have a problem with that. I don't know, maybe I'm being insane. Maybe it's just me. Let me know in the comments down below what problems you have with everything I've been saying. I'm sure it's numerous. Okay, you gotta start wrapping this up because I've been making my videos way too long recently. But man, I can't help it. When I just start talking about the characters in here, they're all so incredibly good. I just want to talk about all of them. Carrie Ann Moss, her whole story was stunning. Seriously, I would watch an entire series just about that. I thought that the story of her divorce and all the twists and the turns that was taking, I was honestly stunned by that. They did that so well. That moment in which Kilgrave tells her, take me to a doctor you trust, and she takes him to her soon-to-be ex-wife. I was stunned by that. I honestly was. That was like, oh my god, maybe she still has feelings for her, but then he tells her to kill her with 1,000 cuts. That was torture. That was the second worst command that I saw Kilgrave give throughout that whole series. The number one worst one to me had to have been when he told Patsy, put a bullet in your mouth. I legitimately screamed at that. I was watching that episode at midnight. I was watching it all by myself, all the lights were off, like it was a horror movie, and when he said that, I let out a Homer Simpson style scream. It was just, it's giving me chills just thinking about it. Why am I talking about Kilgrave again? I'm supposed to be talking about the heroes now. Okay, anyway, Malcolm, her next door neighbor, that guy had the best character arc of anybody in this entire series. I thought he was excellent. And I told this story in the review, but I was watching that episode where they revealed that he's the guy taking photos of her at about 7 o'clock in the morning. I stayed up all night to watch this thing at 3 a.m. when it premiered, and I was watching that one at about 7, and I was so sleepy. I was like, oh, I can't keep going. I really can't. I gotta turn this off. And then they reveal that he's the guy taking the photos, and I had the energy to keep going for 3 more episodes. Alright, that was one of the best twists I have seen out of anything in the Marvel Universe. Way to go. And I, of course, have to talk about my favorite surprise cameo from anything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. My favorite surprise cameo, it's real quick. You have to look really close to catch it, but Mama's Pizza on 106 in Amsterdam. Okay, this one is solely just me, but I did legitimately freak out when I saw that because this is a New York ass show. I love that all of these Netflix series are being shot in New York. If you are a New Yorker, you are going to recognize tons of stuff all over the place whenever they are shooting these. In fact, the most unrealistic thing in this entire series was that they could actually find parking in Union Square. That is less realistic than someone flying and lifting a car, okay? But anyway, when I first moved to this city, I moved to 105th and Columbus, and the closest pizza place to me was Mama's Pizza on 106th in Amsterdam, and I used to go there all the time. To this day, that is the best pizza I have found in New York City. That is not a free plug. They're not paying me for this in any way, shape, or form. They don't even know I exist, but that was hands down the best pizza I've had in this entire city. And yeah, man, when they just quickly shot and showed them driving down the street and I saw Mama's Pizza there, I went, oh my god, way to go, guys. Way to go. Welcome to the big time. Getting a big on-screen promotion from Marvel. Way to go. So yeah, Mama's Pizza on 106 in Amsterdam. $2 a slice. They only take cash. Enjoy. But okay, I will just wrap up by talking about Jessica. There is nothing I can say about Jessica in this spoiler review that I did not say in the regular review, because all the best stuff about her is stuff that you can flat out talk about. I loved seeing her slowly go from just being terrified of this guy, as she should be, to finally being able to stand up to him. That was such a great character arc. Seeing her going from I don't want anything to do with anyone to slowly beginning to care, once again, that was great. And pretty much everything about her character is, this is going to sound bad, but just hear me out. Everything about her character is kind of cliche, but I've said numerous times, it doesn't matter if you're cliche. There's always so many things that can be written out there, and most of them have already been written, okay? But if you do something so well, and you do it with a high enough quality, it doesn't matter if it's cliche. Because yes, Jessica is a hard-drinking, edgy, gruff, grizzled detective with a heart of gold buried underneath all of that. We have seen that 1,000 times. This is one of the best adaptations I have seen of that trope. This is one of the best ways I have ever seen that type of character treated, because none of it feels like they were doing it just to be edgy, just to go like, oh yeah, look at how much he's drinking in here. That's edgy, right? No, it's like, look at how much he's drinking in here. She has problems. All of this did not feel like a stereotype. It did not feel like a cliche or a trope. It felt like an actual character. She is one of the most realistic three-dimensional characters I have seen in television. Not in a Marvel film, not in a comic book adaptation, on television. So yeah, there was nothing for me to say that is spoilery about her character, because that's all you really need to know about her character. I am just so impressed with how they wrote her. And I've said this numerous times, but seriously, Emmys, if you overlook the writing and the acting on that character just because it's a comic book adaptation, then go screw yourself, alright? I'm sorry to be so harsh about that, but seriously, this deserves all the attention that any of the award ceremonies out there can give it. So, way to go. I hope this gets a second season, but at the same time, it really doesn't need it, because every single episode of this thing felt like it was a full season. Like when I got to the end of that first episode and she's getting the kid in the elevator to go home, I was like, were we lied to? Was this just an hour-long movie they made? Because this feels like an entire story fully wrapped up. Way to go. Holy cow, it feels like I just went on an entire journey. And then she shoots her parents and like, oh god, there is so much more they can do with this show. But yeah, I seriously enjoyed this show so much. I had so many thoughts about every single episode. There came a point in which I was very tempted to just bring out the camera and sit up there in the living room and just record myself as I watch each episode so I could give like a play-by-play diagnosis of it. I seriously thought about not doing the review and the spoiler thing. I seriously was thinking about just doing an episode-by-episode review, because every single episode deserved that kind of attention. I have had to think about this long and hard, but I do actually like this more than Daredevil. This actually might be my favorite thing that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has produced. It's certainly the best television thing that they have done. In fact, this might be my favorite comic book television adaptation ever. So I'm putting that out there, and I'm gonna stand by that. But yeah, honestly, I've been talking way too long here. I'm starting to ramble. So I thank you guys for watching this. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought about Jessica Jones. And remember, since this is the spoiler discussion, full spoiler talk. Talk about whatever you want to down in the discussions down there. But I thank you guys for tuning in. If you want to see more stuff from me from the world of geekery, whether it be comic books, movies, television, video games, anything like that, hit that subscribe button right there. You can also follow me on Twitter and Tumblr. The address is right there. And if you missed the original review, or if you want to see my Daredevil review, those will be coming up at the end of this episode. So I hope you guys stay tuned and look into that. And if you want to follow me at the Walker Stalker Con coming up this weekend, the information for that will be in the comments down below. There we go. I think that's everything, guys. I got through it all. Way to go, me. All right. Yay. I'm so tired. Bye, everyone. Now, that summation that I gave you makes it sound like this is going to be a much darker storyline than we have seen from anything in the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far, and indeed it is. This is by far not only the darkest thing that I have seen from a comic book adaptation, it's one of the darkest things I've seen, period. I love fun, happy, and upbeat. But I'm waiting for that one that would make all those people who are like, yeah, but this isn't serious, this isn't real drama. I've been waiting for the TV show that would make all those people shut the fudge up. And it's here. Daredevil is that show.